Good afternoon. This is like a rehearsal. Welcome, everyone. I'm Janice Sykes-Ross, the Executive Director of West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance / Paul Robeson House and Museum. And I want to just take a moment just to welcome all of you. We are delighted that you chose this beautiful Sunday afternoon to spend it with us, because you could have been anywhere, but you're here. And I just want to take a few moments just to share some information about the museum and our new exhibit. The museum is open Thursday through Saturday by appointment only, we hope. But if you stop by, we won't turn you away. Our website address is www.paulrobesonhouse.org. So I'm going to say that again, www.paulrobesonhouse.org. And then we're going to put that in the chat as well for those of you that are online. Thank you for joining us as well. The museum highlights the years of Paul Robeson's life with the stories and pictures of his family, his friends, and the many acquaintances. This is the house he lived in for the last 10 years of his life. And we have a new exhibit. The new exhibit is called Paul Robeson, His Movies, His Music, and His Message. And for those of you that are here in person, we'll have an opportunity to look at the exhibit a little bit later. When you walk into the new exhibit, we transform you into a theatrical setting. And in the setting we show you the films that he was in, his stage career, and we talk about his career in music, and of course his activism, in both domestically and abroad. So today we are doing the third of our Parlor Talks series, which is also a collaboration with the Woodmere Art Museum. So we want to take this opportunity that all of you that are here from Woodmere Art Museum, we want to welcome you and we want to say thank you and give yourselves a round of applause. So our third series of Parlor Talks will feature artists, collectors of art, and what we've also talked about is authors. We have one of our authors here today. We're talking with lecturers, historians, poets, activists, storytellers, and more. So the series will take a little hiatus, and then we'll come back again in the spring. So for all of you out there in internet land, stay tuned, because we're coming back. So I want to take the opportunity now to introduce our moderator, who is Adrian Moody from Moody Jones Gallery.
Good afternoon.
You can give him a round of applause. He deserves it. Wait till you hear the bio. Adrian Moody is the co-owner, along with his wife, Robin Jones, of the Moody Jones Gallery in Glenside, PA. They opened the gallery in December 2016. Mr. Moody was involved in gallery and within a gallery called Art on 38th and Lancaster Avenue in the early 2000s. Mr. Moody has over 35 years in support of gallery owner and collecting. So he's been doing this for a long, long time. Together with his wife, they decided to downsize their collection when they opened the present gallery. And they have been supporting art, primarily artists of color, and not just for the area, but from some of the southern states and all over the country as well. They feel that they want to support and educate and teach folks about the value of collecting art. And it is important that we continue to support them. So Adrian, if I've left anything out, please share with our audience. Welcome.
You were fine, thank you. So, I met Sherry Howard. I read her book. Her book is wonderful, and I'm saying that to say that you all who do not have it, here it is. It's called Art with a Heart. And I met Sherry through another mutual friend of hers, and we had a get-together at our gallery space. And it was very interesting. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not going to do all the talking. I'm just going to suggest to you that this woman here has a wealth of information. The way she built her collection is quite interesting, which is the reason why I support her and agreed to participate in this Parlor Talk. So Sherry, won't you talk to this audience and tell them about yourself and why you got started, what was the first thing you purchased, and that process by which you go about purchasing your works.
Okay, you know what? I don't have an arts background. I just, like probably all you hear. You can't hear me? Okay, you want me to speak up a little louder? Okay, Pinoka wants me to speak up a little louder. Can you hear me now? All right, good, thank you. I get very excited about this. I'm going to be throwing my hands all over the place and all that. But I am a retired journalist. You know, I'm a writer. So writing about art came very, very easy for me. Buying art was a process. I remember the first piece I bought, I was at the mall in Jersey, and there was an African-American artist from Washington named John A. Anderson. And he was selling, you know how artists sell these kiosks? Yeah, he was selling. I paid $50 for it, and I sweated that $50. And you know, it was a sign and number print. That was before I started to teach myself about what I ought to be buying. So I was just buying art by people and with people who looked like me. And so after then, I just decided that, you know what, I am going to start buying African American artists solely. And I gravitated toward going to auction houses to do that. And I think the first piece I bought at auction was right after I moved to Philadelphia in 1984, maybe a couple of years later. The Afro-American Museum in Philadelphia had an art auction going. And I was still very, very timid. We all, you know, when you first start out, you're very, very timid because you don't know what to buy, you don't know who the artists are. And so a Mo Brooker piece came up. And so, you know, and I was very, very reluctant to buy it. I was just afraid. But a friend of mine who was an art consultant was sitting behind me, and she kept edging me on. And I am very, very happy she did, because if any of you know Mo Brooker, his artwork is very, very colorful. And so I liked it because of the color. He's also an abstract artist. You know, with abstract artists, you never know what they're thinking unless you talk to them. And so I bought this piece. And about a couple of years ago, I got a chance to interview Mo Brooker, and his interview is in the book. He's a wonderful artist. He talks all about, you know, colors. He's really into colors. He talks about what color means to him and why he uses different types of color.
Sherry, I'm gonna jump in.
Okay.
I know you. You're gonna
No, I told you I'm going to go on a tangent.
So, I want you to tell the folks here how you went about educating yourself on what artists to look for, because you by trade you are a journalist, and journalists tend to investigate. So did you investigate the artists first before you decided to buy art, or did you do it the opposite way? After you bought the art, then you found out what the person was?
You know, it started out, I read a lot, and I became familiar with, you know, Elizabeth Catlett and Charles White. And I love, you know, Lois Mailou Jones, who I also interviewed a couple of years before she died in the 90s. So and when I would go on vacation, I would go to museums, I go to art galleries, I would read books. I have a library, not a art library, but I have a lot of books on especially African American artists. And when I started going to auctions, some of the artists that I have in my collection I had never heard of before. I gravitated toward artists that I like. You know, this piece here is by Roland Ayers. Obviously, you know, just looking at the people in the painting, I assumed that it was a black artist, but it's signed R. Ayers. I thought it was Ayers, the singer. If you remember the musician singer, Roy Ayers. And so I went back home and I investigated and realized that, there was a Philadelphia artist named Roland Ayers. So a lot of the artwork is works by people I had never heard of before. Sam Brown, and I should also mention that a lot of my artists are Philadelphia artists too, because, you know, that's what people who were, this artwork came from people who live in the area, so they would buy people they know. And people like Sam Brown and Knox, I love this piece. And I almost didn't buy it because, you know, I'm a spiritual rather than a religious person, and this, is a stained glass in the back. But I fell in love with it because I love Columbus Knox, and I knew Columbus Knox's name because Columbus Knox was an artist who always, every summer, would be at the Rittenhouse Arts Festival in the park. And I met him there before I started to really buy art. And so I knew his name. And when this piece came up at auction, I just knew it was mine. Nobody else was going to walk. Nobody else was going to walk away with it. And that happened a number of times when I would go to auction. I would just decide that if it's the right price, I was going to get this particular piece. And for the pieces that I have, it was the right price.
Did you have a style? Some folks have a style. Some folks like abstract, some folks like figurative, some folks like whatever. And there's whatever art, if folks don't know what that means, but whatever means anything they put on the canvas, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. So did you decide when you started doing this, you had in your mind a vision, or are you the type of person that, well, I buy what I like?
And I think I buy what I like. I never know when I'm walking to an auction house what's going to be there. But the first thing I do is I look to the wall, and whatever grabs me, that's what I gravitate to. If it's an abstract piece and I like it, like the Brooker that I mentioned, I would buy it. Or if it's a figurative piece, if there are people in it, I would buy it too. And a couple of the artists that I also picked up were works were by Mexican artists. And some of and like I said, I started out looking for African American art, but it didn't matter. I got to the point where I just bought art that I like. And one that's in the book is a piece of an old 1940s Ford car in a garage. I fell in love with it, and I found out that it was. And after I got it home and did the research, and the artist, this is one of the artists who actually put his name on the piece, and you can recognize it. One of the things you find is that a lot of times artists, you can't recognize what the artist's signature is. And I found out that this was an artist. I get excited about this stuff. There was an artist who primarily does boats off the coast of Maryland, and he's a white artist. And I found him living in a retirement home in I think in Maryland or Virginia, and I ended up contacting him, doing an interview with him. But I love this piece because it has this sort of southern feel to it, and he was very, very nice. He I think it is back. He answered my questions, and he congratulated me for having found a piece that by him. His name is Irons.
While you're looking for that,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a gallery owner, and people come in and they'll say, well, give me an idea of your prices. I point them to this, sometimes I put them to a sheet that I have hanging out in the gallery and say, well, based on the work that's on the wall, you can determine the prices. When you were starting your process, did you have a budget in mind?
Well, not a budget in mind. I knew that I was not going to spend a lot of money, and there was no number on the amount that I was going to spend. I wasn't going to pay $1,000 for a piece. I think the most I ever paid was like $800. But when I first started out, I was paying. For this Elizabeth cat, I think I paid. There was one other person who was bidding against me, and it was very, very interesting because this person, I never know if people know what they are buying. Sometimes when you go to auction, what you learn is that people will push up the bid just because they can push up the bid. But we were bidding on this one, and the auctioneer said $30, and and I have taken it, and then the person and the auctioneer went from $30 to $100, and and the auctioneer's job is to get the most money for the person who owns the piece, and when they get more money, for the owner, they get a better percentage. And so when he said $100, I knew this was going to be mine. And so the person who was bidding against me did not bid. So I got this for $100. I know Elizabeth Catlett, but the interesting thing about it is that it said here, E. Catlett. And when I saw that signature, I said, is this Elizabeth Catlett? And I wasn't sure because this piece was on a table with all kinds of other stuff. It was the same day that the auction house was holding its special sale. And a special sale, they always include the stuff that's expensive. So Elizabeth Catlett should not have been on the table. I'm happy Elizabeth Catlett was on the table because, because when I got home, I did the research, I read and knew her. And I found out that the latest sale of this piece, which I think was sold on auction Galley, was like $2,500 or $3,000. But I got it because, it was Elizabeth Catlett, and I always wanted a piece by Elizabeth Catlett. So, I paid $100 for that. I paid, and like that I got this early on. And one of the things that happened over the years was that anything black started to sell. So that people recognize that, gosh, I need to buy this art by African Americans because I can get money for it. So the prices tend to, even at auction, the prices tend to get higher and higher. And sometimes I was outbid on pieces because, these are mostly dealers. Dealers were buying it at a higher price, because they knew that they can sell in New York or at some of the major auction houses for, 5, 6, 10 times what they paid for at one of the mom and pop auctions. And I should mention that the auctions I go to are not high price auctions. They are mom and pop auction houses. They are in every city. If you get lucky, you can find some very good artwork.
Sherry, let me ask you this question. You said a couple things in your comments. Now, it's important that for the audience to understand that just because you buy something at an auction, the value then is not the same presently. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the things about buying at auction is that you're always going to get it, hopefully, especially due to mom and pop, you're going to get it at a price way below what it's worth. Is that what you're talking about? Getting at the price. Yeah. Like I say, the example I gave, this was, I got it for $100. At that point in time, that's another thing. At that point in time, when I checked, this piece was selling for about $2,500. Now, I have seen this piece, and I've had it for about 10, 15 years. I have seen this piece go from like $2,500 and maybe early this year, up to $8,000. Now, I could try to sell this piece tomorrow, depending on the market. It may be down to $2,500. So it's sort of, the price fluctuates based on who wants the piece at a given point in time. And that's why I tell people that, even if I get an appraisal today, the appraisal is primarily for insurance purposes, and it's always higher than what you may get on the retail market. But prices do fluctuate depending on who wants a piece at a given point in time.
So how long have you been at this?
The first piece I bought at the art museum was in the 1990s. I did not start going to real auction, a mom and pop auction, probably until into the 2000s. And I can tell you one of the best pieces, I don't have it here because it's an oil painting, I'm afraid I don't want to tear it or anything, is by a Delaware artist named Ed Loper Sr. Beautiful. It's in the book. Beautiful. And that's the type of piece that I didn't realize how brilliant it was until one night I was walking down my steps. It's on the wall in my living room, and I just happened to look at it, and and the light from the pass through from my kitchen through my dining room was shining on it, and I could see exactly what and I mentioned in the book, what Loper wanted me to see. This woman was standing on this fire escape on a moonlit night, and he had streaks of white in a painting, so when the light hit it, you felt like you were out there with her. It's amazing, amazing piece.
You got that at the auction?
I got that at the auction. And I know it was a good piece because the person who was bidding against me congratulating me later. He said that, you know what, I was going to buy this to donate to the Afro-American Museum. And I say, wow, you know what, I got lucky. It's probably the most expensive piece I have, but for me, it's one of the most exciting pieces that I have. I just love it. And if you see it in the book, buy the book, you'll see that. Because one thing I have to say about the book is that I self-published this through KDP, Amazon, and the artwork turned out brilliantly. I am just so surprised at how well the artwork turned out in the book, because sometimes that doesn't happen.
So you said you collect art from both African Americans as well as who else?
I have white artists. When I mentioned Mr. Iams, he was a white artist, and I got him because I love the piece of art. And also another person that I have, her name is Frances Server. She was a white female ceramicist. And it's interesting because the pieces in the book too, the pieces that I found by her, I first came across, I think it was these may have been 2 columns, small columns that looked like an African carving. Then I went to another table and I found a little trinket box with the face of an African woman. I just assumed this is a black girl. But it was signed on the bottom F. Server, and I'm thinking, I don't know who this is. And then and the bottom one was Francis, Francis. I thought it was an I. But so, by then I had access to my phone, I had access to Google, and I found out that her name was Frances Server. She was a Philadelphia artist, and she and another artist in the 1940s did this beautiful mural that's now at the Fairmount House on the Parkway. And I used to live at the Fairmount House. Never noticed these beautiful ceramic tiles. And she did that in the 1940s. And I got a chance to talk to and interview, it's in the book, interview her nephew, who is a family historian. And she told me all of these great stories about how she was a bohemian, and I think she's probably a socialist too. But she sounds like a wonderful person. So she's in the book. I also have a piece, 2 pieces by Knox.
For the last 10, 15 years.
Colors and canvases, and I think these are something I'm interested in buying, if not buying, at least writing about. So I should always buy what you like. I tell people don't buy artwork and match your sofa. But it's interesting. I interviewed Ben Britt. Ben Britt is another Philadelphia African American artist. And he's dead, but I did get a chance to interview his son because I wanted to write about Ben Britt. And one of the things I found an old article about Britt where he was interviewed, and he said that one of the things that he did just to make a living, and this is what artists sometimes still have to do. He would bring people into his studio and he'd ask them, well, what exactly are you looking for? And so he would create art to go with their sofa, or to go with something in the house, because that was the only way that he could make money. He said that, he knew that a lot of people frown on that, but you got to make a living. And let me mention another thing about why I bought art too. The pieces you see in the book are pieces that I wrote about in my blog auction finds. And one of the main things I wanted to do was to give some of these artists, because a lot of them you never heard of before, I wanted to give them a presence on the web so that if you pick up a piece by them, which I was finding, I couldn't find anything about them. I had put together their stories in bits and pieces. And now you go and you see Sam Brown, you plug in his name, you'll see that I've written about Sam Brown, I've written about Ben Brick, I've written about Francis Serber, and I've written about other artists that you haven't heard of before, or Robert Cromartie, who had these beautiful pieces, and you never heard of before. And so that was one of the main reasons why I would go to auctions and buy these pieces, so I could come back, research the artists, and make sure that they were out there. Because a lot of these some of these were, Sam Brown was an art major. And some of them worked at the post office. Some of them lived next door to, maybe some of you. And they were, and nobody really cared about, and maybe they didn't either, getting their names out there. And so what I was trying to do was get their names out there and their artwork out there. Because some of them, and across the country, they're, excellent artists who nobody ever heard of.
I'll share an experience that Sherry did with an artist she's 94?
You should right.
94 years old.
Right.
Her name is Ruth Bridges. I don't know, folks who live out in West Philadelphia may have heard of Dr. Bridges. We used to have an office out here on Spruce Street. Anyway, she taught at Grants High School. And when I met Sherry wanted to focus on not unknown, but artists who really haven't gotten any play, so to speak, in the art community. And she met with Miss Bridges, who happened to have taught at Grants, James Bradley and Barkley Hendricks. And if you look at their works, you can see, and look at her works, because she was with her, and Sherry is her journalism background kicked in that day, because she was drilling down, asking Miss Bridges a lot of questions. But it was good to see, and what it showed me was that she is engaged, and she has a passion for it. And I just talk about that. I mean, because a lot of artists have a passion when they paint, but you're writing about it.
Yeah.
And it requires a certain passion, because you see a lot of art, you have to like it to write about it.
And and it's interesting because I'm not a critic. I can't tell you, the style and why people did this. I'm a storyteller. And so if you read this book, and if you read any of the other things, read about Miss Bridges, and you read about Ben Britt, who isn't in the book, and if you read about some of the others, you're going to hear the story of their lives. And that's what I did was with Mrs. Bridges. I wanted to know who she was. That's why when I found the artwork and I went back home and did the research, I was trying to find out who these people were. And Ann Tanksley, another artist out of who lives in upstate New York, I interviewed her by phone. I wanted to know who Ann Tanksley was. Tom McKinney, who is a local artist, I wanted to know who Tom McKinney was. And so my pieces are stories about these particular artists rather than critiquing their work. Another is Dinga McKenna, who does fabric primarily. I was at Swan Auction Galleries, and one of her pieces sold. And this is another, the piece didn't belong to her. She had sold it to the Johnson Publishing Company in the 1970s. So she wasn't reaping the benefits of it, but it sold for maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So she sort of screamed out, and I was curious about who this was, but I thought maybe it was her being happy. But so after the auction was over, I followed her to the bathroom because I wanted to know who she was, and I knew I wanted to write about her. And so she told me, she lived in Philadelphia. And when she said she lived in Philadelphia, I thought it was fantastic because I could go over. This was before the pandemic. I could go over and interview her. And so I did. She has all these wonderful pieces. You know, she was from artists during the 60s, and she was with Faith Ringgold and a couple of others who formed a black female arts collective called Where We At, and they had a few exhibitions. But it was just good to find someone like her and write about her. You know, and at Whitmere last week, and you talk about passion, I get very, very excited. I was at Whitmere last week when Vinoka gave her presentation. And afterwards, I talked about my session today. And a person in the audience was the son of an artist named, this is a piece by Reba Dickerson Hill. I love it. She does something called Sumi-e. It's a Japanese ink process. Her son was in the audience. He told me, he said, well, you know what, do you know my mother? I said, what's your last name? He said, Hill. I knew exactly, instantly, that was Reba Dickerson Hill. And so what I'm going to do at some point, I'm going to talk to him to get the story of his mother. And he said, because he and his sibling are sort of trying to pull, I think it was a brother, trying to pull her artwork together. But I told him I was more excited meeting him than he was, meeting me, because it'll give me the opportunity to tell Reba Dickerson Hill's story.
Well, at this point, I think I want to reach out here to this audience of people who are here and see if there's a question or two. Because I know you can keep talking.
I know.
So I want this to be a little bit more interactive.
Yeah.
So does anybody have a question? I'm sure somebody does.
I do.
Oh. Somebody. Okay. All right. We got a ghost.
Hi, my name is May Lasser, and I'm late signing on. All of a sudden, I couldn't get the audio portion on my computer, so I'm on the phone. But I have two questions, maybe three. One is, have you interviewed any of those artists who used to have works on display and for sale at the October Gallery? And one artist in particular that I'm thinking of is a man who is a sculptor who sculpted life-size figures that gave you the eerie feeling that there was somebody in there. I think his name was Sam Woodard or something like that. That was one question, and he usually presented at the October Gallery gathering, which used to be around this time of year. Another question is, are you aware that Cal Massey's wife is also an artist? I bought a piece from her. They lived, Cal died in recent years, but I was with a friend and we went to their house in New Jersey one time, and I bought a beautiful piece by her, but I can't think of her first name. And I have a number of prints by different artists. Matter of fact, I have a Columbus Knox piece that I think I paid about $500 for. I can't tell you the name of it, and also what's the guy's name that did the black faces like the Neckbone family? Campbell.
Leroy
Leroy Campbell, I think. I haven't heard anything about him lately.
Well, I met Mr. Massey years ago. When I first opened my gallery, Mr. Massey came to the grand opening, and I got to know him and met his wife. I was in the house. And the irony about the whole thing, I should say the irony about the whole thing, we were trying to set up a show for him at the gallery space, and then he died.
Okay.
His wife's work is very interesting. It's not different what Mr. Massey's work is like, but she would be worth talking to.
Is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember her name?
I'll get it.
Okay. I have a
print that I picked up at auction by Cal Massey. And Sam Woodward, I'm not familiar with. Are you? No.
I'm not sure what that guy's name is, but I can see his face, and I can see his name, and I thought it was Sam Woodard, but I don't know. And he's got all these fabulous pieces that he has. As I said, his sculptures are life size. Maybe not a whole figure, maybe a bust, maybe from the waist up, but his stuff is, pardon me?
Yeah, I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say.
In terms of Leroy Campbell, I haven't seen in his work since I first got started, and I would see a lot of signed and numbered prints. I've never seen an original by him. Okay,
Yeah. But it was Cal Massey's wife that I was talking about. Now I have Cal Massey's.
Thank you so much. We do have some other questions. Thank you so much for joining in. And we
thank
the
you.
interaction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Terry, did you give your information so she could maybe contact you directly? We're gonna put the information in the chat.
Yeah.
Is there any other, I think,
Is there a particular resource or set of resources that you use to decide what auctions to attend?
You know what? Yeah, because I get that question a lot. What I always tell people is that there's a site called
You gave me that site.
AuctionZip.
Yes.
AuctionZip. AuctionZip.com. And AuctionZip, you go to the site, you put in your zip code, and what it would do is show you a calendar of all the auctions.
Okay.
I used to say auction within 30 miles from me, all the auctions. And what you can see are ones that are near you. And even if you have something you want to sell to an auction house, that's a way to find out an auction house near you. You go to the site, vet them, make sure that they're legitimate.
Yeah.
And also, go to a couple of their auctions too, just to make sure you're comfortable with them. But AuctionZip.com is a good place to find.
Realize that if you stick to that.
People, these hours are so stuffy. You're afraid to walk in and ask them anything because you felt like a poor church mouse. And the arts to get a lot more comfortable, but still, you still need to, you still can still intimidated. Just like Ada said, you assume that the person next to you may have a little money. You maybe not, but if you see something that you like, all you have to do is sit back. And another thing too, when you go to an auction, and the mom and pop, they always start high. And if you go to another auction, you realize that you sit there and you hold your hands until they come from $100 down to $5. Because everybody, people who go to auction know that. They know that you don't jump on it. And if it's something you really, really want, if it gets down to $25, then you jump in. But if it's something, if you're very, very comfortable getting down to $5, you go to $5 because as soon as it's $5, somebody's going to hit on it. But you just hope that that person doesn't want it as bad as you. You can be very, very comfortable. I found that most of the people who go to auctions are really good people. And most of them are dealers. I was never a dealer. I haven't sold a single piece of artwork that I have purchased because I didn't buy it to sell. Maybe eventually I will, but that was not what I wanted to do. But I remember, and I should also mention that I didn't just buy artwork. I bought stuff to sell on eBay too. But most of it was vintage items. I had a eBay store, so I was a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and I picked up a lot of Black history items that I also wrote about in my blog. I do the same process. I see something, that I like, I go home, research it on my computer, and I write about it. And I've turned up so much African American history and just American history, because a lot of the things that I wrote about, just was history in general. But I've learned a lot in the process. But just getting back to being comfortable, auctions are usually very, very, very comfortable. And most people like you, we're all there to pay the least amount of money for what's on those tables and what's on the walls.
Are there any other questions? Do you need the mic?
If you can hear me, I can.
Yeah.
You can, okay, so,
Are you with the Woodmere? Because we got the Woodmere Museum on there.
Yes,
I'm
she
from
is.
Woodmere. And about, I'm trying to think, 2015, we had an exhibition, We Speak, Black Artists in Philadelphia, 1925 to 1970. Woodmere's mission is to tell the story of Philadelphia art artists.
Right.
That was a nice show.
It was great.
It was a very nice show. It was the beginning of many shows that
Correct.
grew out of that.
Mhm.
Correct.
And all about American history, African American history, one and the same. But two of the pieces that are up there, the Sam
Right.
Brown and the Knox were part of the show. Now Sam Brown I did know, but that was a very different piece than some of the other work that I did know.
Mhm.
But Knox I did not know. But I'm asking from what never occurred to me, once you start working for a museum, you learn a lot about what goes on that label, what the credit really means, and who's the collector, and we had a curator, an outside curator for the exhibition. But how did we get to know that this was in your collection?
I'm trying to think. 'Cause
How does an institution
yeah.
start to know?
Who
there are
has
many
what?
collectors out there,
Right.
but how does the museum get to know you?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was easier for me because I had a blog. I had written about Knox, this piece. I had written about Sam Brown and this piece. And I remember when those two curators came out to just go through my collection to see what was there. But I'm almost certain they did the research, same type of research I do. You Google and see who has what. And they read my blog post about both of these. And I think that's how they found me.
Well, I'm gonna turn that question back to you. How does the museum find out about the artists?
So this particular exhibition,
Well, not artists, about a collector, so to
Yeah,
speak.
well, a lot of it is word of mouth.
Yeah.
So, so you start to do your research.
Yeah.
So the theme, in some ways, the broad theme of this exhibition, beyond the time period of 1925 to 1970, which was broad. You can think about the Harlem Renaissance and its effects in Philadelphia, all the way up to the Civil Rights Movement and everything in between. And so, we had other exhibitions in which we had, African American artists in it, so we start with a knowledge base, but we bring in curators and other people who know a lot more than we do for their expertise. And so a lot of, and the catalog for that show is really a bunch of oral histories
Yeah, it was, yeah.
with people, whether it's the artists like Brooker himself,
We
or
had Tanner. Wasn't Tanner helpful to you folks?
Louis Tanner Moore,
Yes.
who is the great
Nephew,
nephew
correct.
of Henry Hossawa Tanner, who had a show with me in 2008 in Search of Missing Masters. It was his collection. He was he's a major resource, and so you start to plug into your resources. So it could be a gallery owner, it could be an art collector that you've developed a relationship with, it's other curators, it's academics who are, who have investigated all this, quite a bit. And then once we started doing these oral histories, then all the tentacles started coming out of the woodwork. So, and from Louis Tanner Moore, from his show, we learned so much about Charles Pridgeon. Samuel Pridgeon? Charles Pridgeon.
I think it's Charles.
Charles Pridgeon, who is an amazing artist that very few people know about. It's a show that's on our list that we'd like to do. But that will be a major research project for us. He was very influential to many other African American artists in the city. Right before COVID, we had a show, Africa and the Arts in Philadelphia. And it focused on Barbara Bullock, who is an amazing artist, Charles Searles, and Twin 77, who was an artist from Nigeria who went back and forth but settled in Philadelphia. And they came together at the Eli Ife Black Humanitarian Center that was run by the choreographer Arthur Hall. And so all of a sudden this whole new history opened up to us that gave us even more ideas for exhibitions and also more resources of people that we can talk to. So I'm very glad we met you.
Yeah.
When we started this, discussion about what we could do together, because we are currently having a Roland Ayers exhibition, and the curator of that exhibition did not know that Sherry has that painting, and would have loved to say to Sherry,
Okay, interesting, yeah.
I mean, T.K. Smith.
Right.
He would love to have said, can we include that? Because
Yeah.
most of what we have of Roland Ayers' work is this extraordinary pen and ink, extraordinary intricate, personal, dreamlike spaces. But there are about 4 different paintings in the show.
Right.
And then I knew that Sherry knew Roland Ayers' widow, Sheila, who now is working at Woodmere.
Right.
So we brought in our community,
Yeah.
So thank you so much for collaborating with us. and
Right,
for
exactly.
making that.
I'm hoping that Sheila will be here today, because when I it was a couple of years before, after I got this piece by Roland, that I finally was able to connect with Sheila through another collector, Danielle Walker. Now Danielle, has a major collection, and he's a collector and a dealer. He told me he had like 2,000 pieces that he's now cataloged, and he has a wonderful, wonderful piece. In fact, when I did the story about Ben Britt, I had pulled artwork off the web, and I didn't know that some of that artwork were actually pieces that Danielle owns. So if you ever want to do anything about Ben Britt, you're Danielle Walker. And Danielle has so much other artwork that he's probably a good person for you to know to borrow pieces for, for other collections. And and also the Delaware Art Museum is also getting ready to do an exhibition within, I guess, the next couple of months about on an exhibit that was held maybe during the 60s. Percy Scott, I can't remember the person's name who pulled it together. And so they called me, and I guess my name is sort of out there, or they did the research, and they know that I do collect. I might know something that I can will help them. But I get those types of.
So you're research based. So
I am right, exactly. Because one thing I used to do with my blog on Fridays, I used to answer readers' questions. If someone had a piece. And then most of it wasn't art. Some of it was art, but most of it was artifacts. They had a piece, they didn't know what it was, and I say, you know what? I just sort of picked and chose the ones that I found the most interesting, and I would just research them. Loved it, because it was something that I hadn't found. I would research it, and then I would write about it. So I am a resource for people, and I still get questions from people about the value, and I have to tell them I don't know. I have to Google just like you, and I told them to give them the process.
All right. Do we have any more questions online?
Sorry.
No, any more questions online?
Chris, any more questions on that?
No, chat. Just where can they find the book and more stuff, and the web and the blog.
So why don't you tell where they can find the book and your blog, so you can at least tell the audience that bit of information.
Right. For people who are here, I'm going to be signing books next door as soon as this is over. And you can buy the book at Amazon.com, either as an ebook or as a paperback. And I'm working on selling the signed copies from my website, which is sherryhoward.com. The blog is My Auction Finds. I have some cards that I can give out to you too. MyAuctionFinds.com. And if you go to My Auction Finds, I've had people who stumble upon
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Okay. Sherry, I'm sorry. You can buy the book at Amazon.com, and you can read more about the book at sherryhoward.com, and you can read the blog at myauctionfinds.com. And like I said, I have some business cards that I can give out. I don't have them up here with me. I probably should. But the blog is full of all kinds of stories. And people stumble on it, and they sort of happy that they found it, because they're usually looking for something that they don't know anything about, and they can't find anything else about it. And I've probably written about it, because I've written like 1,200 blog posts for the past 10 years. So it's all kinds of stuff in there,
And
all kinds.
And I've given Sherry a list.
Right, there's an artist who wants me to do.
A list that she needs to contact that's been around and about for years
Yeah,
that needs
yeah.
some recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me, how many pieces do you have?
You know, I don't have that many. I think I counted because WHYY did a story. I only have like 200 pieces.
Oh.
Yeah, but you know, I have on my walls some of the ones that I really, really love. But my third floor bedroom, they have just sort of taken over. And a lot of those pieces are pieces that I bought to donate to the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists for scholarships. I used to, you know, donate them, and I would just buy pieces so I could donate it to them. They could sell it, and they can use the money for scholarships. And I need to downsize. I can tell you, you know, there's just a certain number, certain things that I want to keep, and others I do need to do something with.
So Adrian, we had a question back here. They want you to repeat your information again.
Oh.
The
From
gallery.
and your gallery, and how can we contact you?
It's called the Moody Jones Galley. It's in Glenside at 107B Southeastern Road. The website is moodyjonesgalley.org. We're open now, primarily from Thursdays through Saturdays. But it's a wonderful space, and to come and visit. And I do have business cards. It's a labor of love for me and my wife. That's why we have it.
Oh, can I mention one more other thing? And you didn't answer the question about how do you take care of your artwork. That's one of the things I learned too.
You keep it clean.
Yeah, but you know what? But if you see,
Don't put grease on your
right, look at the top of the Sam Brown. You see that's water. Yeah, you see someone allow water to there, and also there are a few nicks and things that probably came before it was framed. So I don't put my artwork, especially on paper, near windows because there's too much light. And if you got artwork in the basement, please remove it. It's too damp down there for your artwork. Any paper, you shouldn't put paper in a damp basement. And also, you know, when you have it framed, ask for acid-free paper so that it doesn't stain through.
And museum quality glass.
You said museum quality glass.
That's what I like.
Okay. What's museum? That's reflective glass.
No, it's museum quality glass. That's all you have to say.
Okay, museum quality glass. Okay.
Well, we want to take this opportunity to thank Sherry Howard, not only for this afternoon, but also thank her for all she does for the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. My name is former executive director of this. Some years together, and I had the occasion to reconnect with him a couple of weeks ago when I went with Sherry to have a book signing at his organization. Those of you who are interested, I hope you will not only take the tour here, but also go next door, have some refreshments, and we also have some gift bags for you. So thanks to all of you for coming out this afternoon, and continue to support the West Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Our address is paulrobesonhouse.org. We have a lot of information on that you can, of course, acquire. And if you have any questions, just feel free to call the organization, which is 215-474-7576. So come and join the organization. We have memberships, and I think that you'll be interested in the program that we're setting up. Thank you for coming this afternoon, and enjoy yourself.
That was great. That was great. Did you guys enjoy it? It's so informative. I go down, and of course, now my done offline. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. You're missing the refreshments, but please come to the Parlor Robeson House.